Welcome to Sharp Football Analysis. Today, Rich and I are going to discuss Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs offense, Phillip Rivers, and everything else you need to know for Week 16 of the fantasy football season. So make sure you stick around. Welcome to Sharp Football Analysis. Rich and I are here to get you ready for the fantasy semifinals, Week 16. But before we do that, I did want to tell you about a great offer. Our partners over at Novig are offering a wonderful deal this week. You can get all of our Week 16 bets and content for free. To claim this offer, all you need to do is create a Novig account using code Warren and complete a purchase of Novig Cash. This is simply the currency they use to get action down on their platform and will be converted back to cash when you withdraw. After your first purchase has been completed, you will receive an email from Novig with a link to claim your free Week 16 access. As an extra bonus, when you join, you'll get up to a $100 match on your first purchase with the code. That's it. 2 easy steps to get all of our Week 16 bets and analysis for free. Click the link in the description of the show or go to sharp.football to claim this offer. If you already have a Novig account, which I do, by the way, I love Novig. It's wonderful in Texas to have Novig as an option. I would highly recommend it. Don't worry, we've got something for you too. If you already have an offer, if you already have an account, use code SHARP50 on any weekly betting package to take 50% off. That's SHARP50 to take 50% off any package. We want you to win with us through the final stretch of the season. So go to Sharp Football, take advantage of this wonderful, wonderful offer and get down on Novig, which again, I love. Novig's a wonderful, wonderful place to get down some action. Also, just a reminder, we're starting with the bowl games. Ryan McChrystal's going to write up information on every single bowl game. Even if you're not playing in a bowl pick'em, that's all available to you as well. Goes through the good, the bad, opt-outs, all of that available over at Sharp Football Analysis. So check that out. All right, that's it. We're done with that. Let's get to it. Let's get to the big news of the week. Unfortunately, Rich, was the knee injury to Patrick Mahomes. And I guess we could start out just like from a real football perspective of how it all felt like the end of an era, just like sad Travis Kelce and Mahomes limping off and them being knocked out of the playoffs. It was a kind of a surreal scene given what we've experienced from this team over the last, decade now and what we've seen. Like, it just was a surreal thing.
Yeah, it was. I think a lot of people still even if they lost the previous two games, everyone was kind of feeling like until they were dead, they weren't dead. It was
absolutely.
Like, one of those things. So everyone was waiting, and it was just like, you're watching that game, and it was just the Chargers are just like playing better literally the last 3 quarters of that game, and just like, all right, they got one gasp in them, and then Mahomes gets hurt. And then you hear some of the commentary for Travis Kelce, and then like kind of the fallout this week where, like Rashee Rice and concussion protocol. It's just like, it just feels so. You heard Chris Jones after the game, like not even realize they were out, and like how the instant somberness that like it was just like a wave just like went over him. It's kind of surreal. And it's interesting here too, because like we still might have a number of other really good teams not make the playoffs and real good quarterback play. I know Bills fans probably, it's going to be interesting because like you never give anything back, but like, the Bills, like they still won't like have to go through the Chiefs. It's like still kind of weird that they won't have to do it, but if they'll take one any way they can get it, if they can get there.
Yeah, and the Bills, man, there's so many other issues with that team. But what we saw from them last week against the Patriots, you do have to just say, if Josh Allen, and we'll see what happens. Well, Josh Allen's is the best quarterback in the league, so he's going to be the best quarterback in playoffs. But we'll see what happens with like the Ravens, and if they can sneak in with Lamar Jackson playing better. We'll talk about them, a little bit later. And so but you go through what is normally the quarterback gauntlet of the AFC, and it's just not there this year. And it might not really be there if Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, can't turn things around and get to get into the postseason, which they have a kind of a tough run here starting this week with the Patriots. So yeah, it's really, really interesting. You mentioned Rashee Rice is in the concussion protocol. We record this on Thursday morning, so we don't know what's going on with that, but it kind of seems like we're not going to have Rashee Rice this week. Gardner Minshew is going to take over as a starter. That would seemingly be a great fit with Rashee Rice, seemingly be a great fit with Travis Kelce as well. We saw what Minshew did last year with the Raiders with, Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers, and a lot of that kind of makes sense for what the Chiefs could do. But this offense wasn't great with Mahomes. You would think they'd want to lean into the running game, but the running game sucks. Like, I just don't. What do we do with this offense moving forward for fantasy?
Yeah, I mean, you have to hope that when Rashee Rice comes back, he's still, a high volume target, player. The rest of the schedule here isn't great though. I mean, if you make it through to this round, if you had Rashee Rice or you had Travis Kelce, like you still got Broncos on the other side, for fantasy championships. You don't feel great about that with Gardner Minshew on any level. They should still be pressed to throw the football a lot this week. I know that the offensive line is in shambles, but you can't line up and run the football on the Titans, which I don't think like a lot of people even think about, right? But it's something I've talked about for like literally weeks, especially since Jeffrey Simmons came back. But it was going on before Jeffrey Simmons came back, and you saw Christian McCaffrey. I was flabbergasted Christian McCaffrey was so popular on the main slate last week in DFS. But you can't run on the Titans. They're the largest pass funnel in the NFL. They face the highest pass rate over expectation. So you expect a lot of dropbacks here still. If Rashee Rice would have been there, I thought Minshew might have been interesting for DFS, but not as much now. But guys like Xavier Worthy might have a little bit of a pulse here as like a deep end, like wide receiver 3 flex and stuff. You might see Jalen Royals play snaps. That's the other element too, is the Chiefs have never been in this spot, under Andy Reid, not since 2014. So we don't know. Are they going to start is Brashard Smith going to start playing the final 3 weeks? Is Jalen Royals just going to get run? Are they going to give some other guys? We don't know. Like we haven't seen how they handle it. So it's just kind of in no man's land. I know Kelce's still running down a couple all-time records here. So I think he'll still be involved, but it's just not a good feeling. You don't feel good because, like you said, you remove Mahomes from the fact that they already weren't good with Mahomes.
Yeah, that's really my concern, is that we're already not good. This matchup is good enough, and like you said, it's a pass funnel enough that if Rice somehow plays, then like you said, Minshew's interesting in DFS. Rice is interesting to get targets. If Rice doesn't play, I mean, maybe we get some Marquise Brown, although he, didn't play last week and still having some stuff going on with him as well. And so, yeah, it's interesting. I do like the what do we do in the backfield, because didn't we get a report from somebody that the Chiefs are kind of done a little bit with Isaiah Pacheco? Obviously, Kareem Hunt's not the future. Do they try to see what they have in Smith? I do think that that's interesting, but that's more of a, we have to see that before we can really do anything actionable about it.
We're in that time of the year. So, I mean, you already seen it with the Dolphins, now that they're eliminated. Just, hey, let's at least just see what Ewers has these last couple of weeks, and we'll use it as a valuation period. Raiders, I am begging you to play Cam Miller. Just play Cam Miller, Raiders. Just give him a start.
Well, this was the problem whenever you hired. This is why you shouldn't have hired Pete Carroll, right? Because Pete Carroll's not interested in that. Pete Carroll's going to go back and play Geno Smith, which he should. Pete Carroll's an older coach who wants to win games. Like it makes sense for him to do this. But yeah, why are we playing Geno Smith? I think it's a fair question. The Dolphins are interesting since you brought him up. I guess we can talk about it here. What do we expect with yours? Because in this matchup against the Bengals, we would expect them to be able to run. They wanted to run and hide Tua even when Tua was a quarterback. I assume that that's what they're going to want to do again this week against the Bengals. I think we could see obviously a massive game from Devin Achane, but the Bengals have also been terrible against tight ends. The Bengals offense, we'll talk about the Bengals offense a little bit here in a second. If, can they get back to being good? Can T. Higgins come back and then not play better than they did last week and push the Dolphins out of that? There's a lot of interesting stuff here, especially I think for the tight ends, for Darren Waller. He had all of that production last week in that one quarter, but his peripherals had already been good. It's just that the Dolphins hadn't been forced to throw. They're forced to throw and suddenly he explodes. Are they forced to throw this week in a great matchup for tight ends? And if so, like that's probably good for Darren Waller. So that game to me is actually very, very interesting, even with Quinn Ewers at quarterback.
Yeah, 100%. I'm very excited to see what Quinn Ewers has. This is a system that I think is favorable to what he was asked to do last year. And he might be able to do more than what he did last year because, he played with that oblique injury that last year at Texas and kind of had a lot of stuff just manufactured him, a lot of stuff behind line of scrimmage, at the line of scrimmage, a lot of hand holding. But that's what Mike McDaniel is going to give him the opportunity to do too. His only appearance came in like a jailbreak scenario against like the Browns pass rush. Yeah. Like this is a completely probably better environment where a lot of things can be controlled against this Bengals team that gets no pass rush. They don't really blitz. They're not an aggressive defense. You're at home. Like there's no weather stuff. It's a pretty good environment for him. I have no idea what to really expect, but I think Mike McDaniel is going to be able to play like with the run here. They're going to be able to run the football. I know a lot of people are really scared about like the Devin Achane, like previous splits without Tua, right? Like it's like those exist, but I still think that they're going to be able to run the football a lot in this game, and they're going to manufacture stuff for Devin Achane. So does give viewers a spot to maybe operate with like a little bit of a balance too, and maybe be in a lot more comfortable climate than maybe a player at this, like to this degree, would be thrown into at this time of the year. So I'm a little more optimistic, I think, or at least taking the glass half full approach with viewers this week. I mean, that's not saying go put them in fantasy lineups or anything, but the Tua was so bad that, I mean, I feel like the bar is just very low for this offense to still be functional against this Bengals defense.
Yeah, I think the reaction of the betting markets of, really spiking the Bengals. I'm not sure how high they ended up getting. At one point, they were -5.5. I think it's kind of leveled off. They're definitely not going to get over 7. Which, if it had gotten over 7, we'd have been, that'd been wild. We've been all Dolphins all the time. But I think the reaction was odd. It went through 3, and I just don't think Tua Tagovailoa, what we've seen from him recently, and what they've been asking him to do, I just don't think it was worth that much of a reaction. But, we'll see. Maybe we're going to find out that Tua really, the way that he plays and his ability to mask the offensive line concerns that they have and get the ball out quickly on time, maybe that is just the only reason the offense had any functionality whatsoever. And if that's the case, then, it could be a lot of sacks, but probably not against the Bengals, right? So there you are. All right. We're going to get on to some agree or disagree. Before we do that, though, I do want to bring in Warren Sharp, who's going to talk about our PrizePicks lineup for Week 16.
It's time for us to build this week's PrizePicks lineup and turn $100 into $600. PrizePicks is the best place to win cash while watching sports with their easy-to-use app. And now you can play $5 and get $50 instantly in lineups when you use code Warren after you download their app. Off of a solid win on last week's lineup, turning 100 into 600, we're back to try to turn 100 into $600 again over at PrizePicks. As a reminder, you can get $50 in lineups instantly as soon as you play your first $5 lineup. Click the link in the description below. You can get access to that great offer over at PrizePicks. All right, let's walk through the 3-player lineup over at PrizePicks. First up, we're going with Aaron Jones. Longest rush, more than 13.5 yards. As you can see, he's done it in 3 out of the last 5 games, but he's actually done it in 5 out of the last 7 games. And now he's going up against a New York Giants run defense. I'm trying not to laugh because this defense is pretty laughable. This team has allowed the last 9 games, they've allowed at least one running back to have a longest run of at least 15 yards. Okay, in their last 9 games, 9 times have they allowed, that's 100%, a running back to have a longest run of at least 15 yards. And in fact, they've allowed a total of 11 running backs, which means multiple running backs have done this at times against this New York Giants run defense. This run defense currently allows a run of 10 or more yards on a league high 16% of running back runs. So we like the spot for Aaron Jones to have at least one long run. Next up, we're going to go to Rico Dowdle. We're going less than 59.5 rushing yards. There's not much more that needs to be said except for just take a look at that graphic on the screen where Rico Dowdle has gone less than this 5 consecutive games. He is now getting more of a timeshare with Chuba Hubbard as Chuba Hubbard is fully healthy. The team is pivoting a little bit more to Chuba being that 3rd down back. And then once the team converts one of those 3rd downs into a 1st down, then Chuba stays on the field at times and continues to run the football. Last but not least, with this one, you're going up against a Tampa Bay Buccaneers run defense, which invites a little bit more passing of the football as opposed to running of the football anyway. So it's just not a great game to be expecting Rico Dowdle to have a lot of rushing yards. So that's player number 2 in the lineup. And player number 3 is Bo Nix, more than 235.5 passing yards. A couple things about Bo Nix. Number 1, before J.K. Dobbins' injury, the running back for the Denver Broncos, he was averaging just 213 passing yards per game. In the 4 games since J.K. Dobbins' injury, he's been averaging 282.5 passing yards per game. Bo Nix has thrown for at least 295 passing yards in 3 of his last 4 games. The Broncos have pivoted to a 8.6 above expectation pass rate after they lost J.K. Dobbins, which is 2nd highest in the NFL, behind only the Arizona Cardinals, who are just passing the ball left and right all the time. And last but not least, the last 3 quarterbacks that went up against this Jacksonville Jaguars pass defense were Cam Ward, Riley Leonard, and Brady Cook. So you might not think Bo Nix is any big shakes, even though he's got his team in the number 1 seed in the AFC conference. But Bo Nix is certainly superior to those 3 quarterbacks. Now gets to go up against the Jacksonville Jaguars defense, where they're going to probably have a high pass volume in a very meaningful game for the Denver Broncos to try to win and maintain that number 1 seed in the AFC. So those are our 3 players that we're inserting into our PrizePicks lineup and looking to turn $100 into $600. Once again, if you want to tail these with us, click the link in the description below and go sign up for PrizePicks. Get that nice bonus offer when you join and look to turn 100 into 600 with us on Sunday.
All right, let's move on. Agree or disagree, my favorite segment, the internet's favorite segment, Rich's least favorite segment, and that's why we love it. We just love it. He's sitting there in his Santa hat as if he's not the Grinch, as if he's not Scrooge. That's really mean for me to say, because I am the one who dislikes Christmas of the group. So this makes no sense. I did put on my red shirt for you, though, to try to support.
I do appreciate it.
I put on my red shirt so now everybody can see my red undertones and worry that every time I wear this shirt, I get a, are you all right? Are you all right? Yeah, no, I got it. I'm fat. I got it. But the red shirt brings out the red undertones. So we're fine. We're fine, kids. We're fine. All right, let's do some agree or disagree. I'm going to start you out with an easy one. I'm lobbing a softball over the plate. You are excited to watch more of the Phillip Rivers experience.
No, I disagree. I wasn't. Yeah,
strong disagree.
Yeah, strong disagree. What the Colts put on offense. My hot take is I think the Colts win that game with any other quarterback too last week. And I know like the narrative was Phillip Rivers got them in position to win the game, but they Big Lou,
the defense got them in a position to win the game.
Big Lou was in his absolute bag. Yeah. They didn't have a play of 20 or more yards in a game for the first time in the entire season. They had at least 2 or more in every game. What they asked Phillip Rivers to do in that game, anybody could have done. Like they could have actually asked Riley Leonard to do that. They didn't throw anything downfield. He threw 8 passes, 10 or more yards downfield. He threw 30% of his passes at or behind the line of scrimmage. Dude, they threw the ball 4 times on 23 first downs. They were minus 33% pass rate, under expectation or over, whatever you say. They just didn't like really even try to do anything. And I get that. He hadn't played in 5 years. He was on the road in Seattle, but like you could have had anyone else do that same game plan. So the lack of arm strength, and Phil never had a great arm when he was in his apex either, but the lack of arm strength was extremely noticeable last week. The crazy part is if they want to run back that same game plan, I think they're going to have better success with it this week.
That's exactly what I put in my notes. I go because I knew exactly what you were going to say because we've talked about it this week. But then in my notes I wrote, yeah, but that's probably going to work against the 49ers, or at least is going to be functional against the 49ers.
Yeah, because they were just willing to run Jonathan Taylor for like 3.5 yards per carry and live with it. Jonathan Taylor is going to be breaking a lot more runs against the 49ers. This run defense has been absolutely terrible since Mykal Williams was lost for the season, and then obviously Fred Warner. So I'm pretty bullish on Jonathan Taylor. I wish he was on the main slate this week. I mean, the last 2 weeks, the 49ers, obviously, Tony Pollard had a good game against the Browns the week before, but over 100 yards to him, over 5 yards to carry. They allowed 91 yards to Quinshon Judkins the week before, which like a normal running back is like 200 yards at this point with the way the Browns are running the football. But they've allowed 130 total yards per game to backfields over their past 5 games. And it's against like the Cardinals, the Titans, the Browns, like teams that have had no success all year. I think Jonathan Taylor's in a great spot at home to be leaned on, and then you're just not asking Phil to do much again. But they just operated. They had him stand back in shotgun, just get rid of the ball fast at the line of scrimmage. We didn't get to see him do anything cool. Like, that's a bummer, man. He made one real awesome play where you saw like the brain was still there, where he diagnosed the defense and actually made a great throw to Josh Downs. Josh Downs called for the football, and the ball was already there. Like, you could see, it was just like, oh man, like Danny Dimes was doing that, but that was it though. But I know it was fun to have him back, and like I watched that game and had blasted, but like it was not functional football what they were doing.
To illustrate the 49ers, like issues in the running game. I recently posted this screenshot in a Slack chat that Rich and I are both in, and he loves when we post screenshots into those. But this is Rico Dowdle's last 5 games. How many yards per carry he's averaged? He's averaged 2.9, 2.4, 3.2, 3.1, and in the middle of that, 6.3. I'll let you guess who the 6.3 was against. Now, to be fair, it was like 6 carries, but it is just
that's the game that broke Canales, man. Like we want Canales to throw the football, and he finally tried to throw the football against the 49ers, and it was an abject disaster. It was the one game he should have actually stuck with the run.
Absolutely. They should have just kept running, but then they got behind. It is what it is. Game script is what it is. But yeah, no, it hasn't been great. I do wonder if this is like a now or never week for Tyler Warren, because if this is going to work, we did see him get targets. It makes sense for him to get targets in this situation. Since you mentioned the Fred Warner injury, since they've lost Warner, the 49ers have been very susceptible to tight ends, which, has not been the case whenever Warner is healthy. I do wonder if this is, a now or never week for Tyler Warren. But I don't know how you could get excited about really any part of this passing offense, given what we saw and given what I would expect them to do with just run Jonathan Taylor as much as possible and as long as the game script allows them to do so.
Yeah, and that's the thing is because you could say like, all right, they have an extra day off, they're going back home. He's been with the team now. Maybe they add some things. So there was nothing physically from like his arm shake that says like they can open it up. Like there wasn't really a lot to say like, okay. And that's what's going to be interesting to see moving forward too, because they did open the 21-day practice window for Anthony Richardson. We know he's not starting on Monday, but we'll see how this goes on Monday. Maybe they can hang around, maybe even win this game again. But the problem with Warren is he's been so predicated all season on like the RPO action. And that was removed from the offense, obviously, with Phillip Rivers. Like they had their highest rate under center. He was under center 98% of his snaps. And when you remove that from the offense, that's been all Tyler Warren's bag this year. Like we haven't seen Tyler Warren like go out and win as like a nuanced player all season. It's all been stuff that's been designed for him. On non-play action passes this year, he's the tight end 38 in yards per out run. So we haven't really seen that from him. So it's just tough to be bullish on the ceiling for any of these players. I think even if you get a touchdown from any of these guys, you might not have a high ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, you saw that with Downs last week. Although Downs has, not had a ceiling at all this year. So, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. All right, let's move on to our next agree or disagree. My statement for this one is we should go right back to Joe Burrow as a quarterback 1 this week.
If T. Higgins plays.
That's fair.
Then yes, I would. If it's not T. Higgins, he's definitely a lot more volatile. It's something we've talked about since the start of last year. It's why I was less into him last week in the rematch again with the Ravens, even coming off of the great game in Buffalo, right? Because it's like, all right, he got his feet wet, he's acclimated, he's just a QB1, and it's like, oh, T. Higgins is out again. And like, anytime T. Higgins has been out these past years, Joe Burrow's production and efficiency completely tapers off. And it makes sense, right? Like, because he just opens up so much vertically for this offense. He's such a high double team target guy vertically, and then just clears out all that stuff for Jamar Chase. And Jamar Chase was still fine. He gets his targets. But this season, we've got going back even to week 1, week 2. I mean, he's completed 58% of his passes, 5.7 yards per pass attempt with Higgins off the field. He goes up a full yard to 6.7 yards per pass attempt. Not the greatest, but it's a full yard difference. And then 64% completion rate, which is a 6% bump. Last week, it was all the same stuff. So if Higgins is back this week, and it sounds like he's trying to get back on the field, he practiced limited capacity last week. He opened the week practicing, still in concussion protocol. But the other weird thing too is that the Bengals just like were willing to quit last week. Like the
vibes are bad. They are not good.
They threw the ball
just vibe scouting. It's not great.
They threw the ball 7% below expectations, 20% below on first downs. Like after the pick 6 in that game, when it went from 17-0 to 24-0, and they just like ran the clock out. It's like simulate to end. And like you said, the vibes for that, definitely not great at all. But the Dolphins are a team we've picked on all year in the passing game. They just allowed Aaron Rodgers to have his highest completion rate since 2014 on Monday night. The week before that, they got a haul pass against Brady Cook. But then the week before that, Tyler Shuck was effective against them. We've seen a lot of QB1 weeks to guys like Marcus Mariota. So if Higgins is back, I'll be a lot more bullish on Emo Joe now delivering it for us.
And the Dolphins have been, I don't know how much people are paying attention, but the Dolphins have been quietly very good against the run as well, which, we could push. It's definitely a pass funnel situation. And so as long as the Bengals want to run the offense the way they normally run the offense, and it is weird to think about those numbers because Burrow still had 39 pass attempts last week, right? It was 39, I think. And so you look at the pass rate under expected and you go, how could that be? Well, they were a trail game script the entire time. So it is what it is. But yeah, I'm interested in kind of what we see from them this week. And like you said, if Higgins is back, you feel really good. If Higgins is back, I feel good about like this game in general. I assume that it will be a relatively popular one for stacking for DFS purposes, but we'll have to see kind of where that ends up when those ownerships projections come out. All right, one more for you here. Michael Carter is a confident start in the fantasy semifinals.
Oh yeah, I disagree. Yeah, for a couple of reasons, right? Like, well, one, it's a Cardinals running back. This team's not a strong running team. They're facing a team that actually is more of a pass funnel too. Atlanta's defended the run really well of late. Over the past 5 games, they're 9th in yards per carry, 5th in rushing yards allowed per game. The other thing too is that we don't know if does Amari DiMercato get an extended role? Last week was his first game active. Does he get involved again? Typically, the course of the entire season, the Cardinals have played like a compartmentalized backfield where you have a guy in an early down role, they have a pass catching role. Does that happen? It's just another variable to throw into the mix here. So I think he's fine if you need a body to take that shot on him at getting touches. But I would say my confidence level in him of saying he's going to have the workload he had after Bam Knight left last week's game is pretty flimsy. So yeah, I just think that we haven't seen a lot of stability here, and we're on RB5 of the year for them, and none of these guys have really been good starts anyways. Going back to James Conner to start the year, James Conner didn't even start the year good. So yeah, I will say I disagree with that. I think it's fine if you just need a body and you need a warm dude getting touches.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I am with him, and I don't think. Because he did, you pointed out, I want to put some numbers to it. He played 50 snaps to 7 for DiMercato last week, 18 touches to 3, 31 routes to 5. And so it wasn't just, like you said, the Cardinals have been more compartmentalized in the backfield for large stretches of the season, but it wasn't. He was playing all the snaps instead of DiMercato. And was that because DiMercato was coming back from injury? Was he just not in the game plan because they expected to have Bam Knight, and those were the 2 backs that they were going to use? And so DiMercato wasn't in the game plan, so he wasn't involved. This week he will be. So yeah, there's a lot of that concern. You mentioned the Falcons being good. Also, they've been relatively good against running backs out of the backfield. They're 8th in yards per target allowed to running backs, I believe, over the last 5 games. I believe that's where my cutoff was. And so, yeah, there's pathways here for whoever is the receiving back to get there because the Cardinals just throw enough. There's definitely pathways there, but we don't know who that's going to be. And that does make things a lot more difficult for looking at Michael Carter. That said, do you know who will be starting Michael Carter in a league this week? This guy right here.
Probably a number of people still, to be honest. Yeah. So I get it. I totally get it. This was a huge, as crazy as week 15 was, and gamers got through and some really big scores. There was a lot of volatility and injuries and backfield shakeups. There's still so much to sort through these next 2 days of practice reports to find out what's going to happen coming into Sunday.
Yeah, there's just uncertainty everywhere. And we got some certainty with the Saints situation that we know Vele's not going to be out. We know Devin Neal's going to be out. But then you look at that backfield and you go, I don't know. Do you want to start Audric Esime or Evan Hull? It's stuff like that. It just continues it becomes more and more confusing. Woody Marks didn't practice on Wednesday. Every indication is that he's going to play, but he didn't practice. Nick Chubb was limited. Are we getting more Jawar Jordan? It's just all of that stuff.
And they brought him, they made him active on Monday, immediately following. He was the first guy to rush over 80 yards for the Texans all year. So yeah.
A lot of that this week. It'll be a fun fantasy semifinals for sure. All right, let's move on and do some game previews. Before we do that, I do want to remind you that you have a great opportunity this week to get all of our Week 16 content and bets for free if you open an account with Novig. You get all of our access to our Week 16 bets and contents for free. Create a Novig account using code Warren, complete a purchase of Novig Cash, and then you will get an email with a link for that. Head over to sharp.football to get all the information on that. Make sure you take advantage. Like I said, I love Novig. I'm a big fan. I personally use Novig, so I can vouch for them for sure. Also, make sure you subscribe to us, YouTube, podcast player choice. We really appreciate it. Rich and I will not be with you next week because Thursday next week is Christmas, and we will be spending time with our family. We'll be back the week after that, and then all the way, by the way, through the playoffs. We're going to keep going, talking about DFS and betting angles and all of that as we move through the playoffs. The worksheets are going to keep going through the playoffs as well, so you'll get access to all of those. Rich's game-by-game, player-by-player preview of every single game, every single week. Those will keep on going through the playoffs. All of them are available on the site right now for this week, for Week 16. So if we don't talk about a game or we don't talk about somebody specific in a game that you're interested in, then head over to Sharp Football Analysis. Take advantage of that Novig offer. You'll get access to all of his worksheets. Make sure you do that. All right, let's get started with the Packers and Bears. Packers at Bears. Chicago -1.5 last time I checked. It's a low line either way. 46.5 point total. Not very high. I still think maybe a little higher than I would have said it, but that's, neither here nor there. We do have an interesting situation with the Chicago passing game because it does look like Rome Odunze and Luther Burden are going to miss this game. Again, we haven't got final injury reports for this one, but neither one of them has practiced this week, which raises some interesting questions about how confident are we in DJ Moore? Are they going to be forced to use Colston Loveland more? Are we getting a big Zacchaeus game? Are we finally hear all of the Zacchaeus truthers that we're going to have a Zacchaeus game? It's an interesting situation. When Rome Odunze was out, then you're like, all right, Luther Burden, and he's getting a lot of targets. If you guys have been running a ton of routes, getting a lot of targets. Now you add him to the mix, and I'm not sure what we're doing with this passing game.
No, this game has a lot of moving parts. We did see that Christian Watson practiced, which is there, but Micah Parsons is going to be out obviously for the rest of the season on the Packers side, which is a pretty big deal.
Josh Jacobs hasn't practiced this week. I think we assume that he's going to play, that they're doing maintenance, but
right.
He hasn't practiced this week. That's worth noting.
It's just very clear, though, that even if Josh Jacobs plays, this is something he's probably going to deal with for the remainder of the season. That's been going on since the Giants game. And he keeps rallying too. Credit to Josh Jacobs. It doesn't matter. He shows up and scores his touchdown. And last week he got 2. Actually had his longest run of the year too in Denver. He actually played a great game on the limited touches that he got. But yeah, Packers are banging. Zach Tom looks like he's going to be out for this game. And when he's been out, it's been a significant injury for the Packers, who have just been all year going through it on the offensive line. They're starting out, their projected starting offensive line for the season. They haven't had them that unit together all year. So there's just a lot of moving parts in this.
We even had DeAndre Swift show up on the injury report as limited on Wednesday.
And that's pretty common for what's been him the last 2 months too.
Sure, but it is interesting that he wasn't on it at all on Tuesday and then is limited on Wednesday, which again, he's probably just maintenance and all that stuff. He's probably going to be fine. We don't know when we record this, but it is interesting that was the progression. Every time there's that progression, you at least are interested in what happened.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a game for fantasy purposes. I'm not as bullish as I was. Well, the first time I was pretty bullish on it from a DFS stance for Jordan Love and Christian Watson. This one, I think there's a lot more volatility to it, especially like I said, with Zach Tom being out. Love has been pressured on 47% of his dropbacks this season, with Tom off the field this year, which is like a 10% increase. So that's a pretty big deal. Love has been very sensitive to pressure all year. He literally he's the highest completion rate in the NFL when he's from a clean pocket this year. And he was last coming into last week's game when pressured in completion rate, but he moved up a couple spots last week. But so he's been real sensitive to pressure. So that's a big deal for him. You're curious about the adjustments too. These teams just played 2 weeks ago. Caleb, he's been a pretty identifiable quarterback for fantasy purposes all season, based on opponent. It does Micah Parsons being out open this up for a better matchup? It potentially could, but then you remove 2 wide receivers from him and you're less bullish on that as well too. So this is a game I think that, like you said, is probably more, I lean towards being more of an under game, divisional rematch, outdoors, cold weather. It just feels like a game that's not a huge, great fantasy friendly environment on the surface.
Yeah, I think so. I also think that, with Parsons out and they're already missing Wyatt as well, we could see the Bears run game have success, assuming DeAndre Swift is healthy and, Kyle Monangai have some success as well. Does that take the air out of the ball a little bit? Do we get fewer plays? We know the Packers are more than willing to just run the ball as much as they can. The Christian Watson thing is interesting because while it would have been, I guess, nice from like just a DFS perspective to be able to project the Packers wide receiver with one fewer person running routes, right? Maybe that would have been interesting. Maybe we get some Matthew Golden, which we saw at the end of that game last week, and he could be interesting from a DFS perspective, especially on a short slate. This Watson being there has traditionally been a very good thing for Jordan Love. Watson, to me, is their best receiver. And so if he's healthy and he's out there running routes, that's a good thing for Jordan Love. And maybe, we can still pair the two of them on Saturday if you're playing Saturday only, although that Saturday only slate it's not great.
Not great.
It's not great, kids. But yeah, like there are options here for this going over and for us hitting the over and hitting a few good plays in it. But there is a lot of concern there. And I brought up DJ Moore at the top, and we talked through a lot of it. But I do want to get your opinion on DJ Moore and just kind of what we're doing with him. He got in the end zone. He's gotten in the end zone a lot actually recently. Still didn't have a high yard total. If the Bears are able to ride the running game, like how many pass attempts do we get from Caleb Williams? Lots of questions here for DJ Moore, but like if it's going to happen for DJ Moore, this is kind of when it has to happen, right?
Yeah, especially if Burden's out, because we're assuming like a Dunze is like a pretty good lock to be out, especially going into the 11th hour last week where they rule him out in pregame. Like the guy has, a stress fracture in his foot. Like they've got to, like they just have to rest him like probably through the rest of the remainder of the regular season, but they're not like officially in yet. So I get why they're feeling a little bit of the squeeze. But if Burden's out with a Dunze, I mean, you just have to assume like this is a guy that's going to be on the field and they're going to have to design stuff for him where he's the first read and they're getting him the football. So he climbs up at least into like that like upside wide receiver 3 range. We've seen him get a lot of end zone targets, like in 3 of the past 5 games. He's got multiple touchdowns. So he still has plenty of volatility. Packers are still a really good pass defense as well. I know the pass rush takes a hit, but they still can play pass defense as well. So yeah, he's just, like I said, like a volatile, like wide receiver 3, but this would be like the spot where like you just kind of plug your nose and say, hey, it's all on the table for him to at least get volume, and you hope that sticks and turns into fantasy points.
All right, let's move on to Jaguars at Broncos. Denver -3, another 46.5 point total. We've seen the Jaguars. I mean, I've brought it up a couple times how I'm still not. I'm not a believer, but I'm wrong. So there, throw that out. That I'm obviously wrong because this offense keeps doing.
Never wrong, just early. You just need them not to win the Super Bowl, and you can say you're right.
Yeah, fair enough. The offense keeps doing it. The defense keeps doing it. So I mean, they're real. They're going to be in the playoffs. It'd be shocking if they weren't, right? And this looks real for them, but. Even after last week, we saw what they did against the Jets. The Jets defense is what it is. They fired their defensive coordinator for a reason. Now they travel to Denver. This is a massive, massive test for this offense and kind of where we are with Trevor Lawrence, with Travis Etienne, with Jacoby Myers, with Brian Thomas has been playing, better as of late. We're finally getting a real test here for the Jaguars.
Yeah, and I mean, part of this is real because I still think like since the Jacoby Myers trade, like it just makes sense to have why they've done a little bit better here before we get to the opponents. It's just like they have the wide receivers, I think, in the proper roles where they should be. You get that guy that's kind of in that more comfortable, like Chris Godwin-ish type role. Like that's Jacoby Myers' game, and it's made the entire offense better. It's put Brian Thomas in a new role. We saw Parker Washington come back, and although he was kind of the third wheel, we know he's a guy who can still make some plays and earn targets when he's out there. You still got Brenton Strange. So just everyone's kind of in the right spot. Now, the past month, like they faced the Cardinals, the Titans, the Colts, and the Jets. Like pretty identifiably pretty solid spots for the offense to be good. Now they're going in Denver too. Like this game isn't in Jacksonville. And we've seen Trevor Lawrence face 5 top 10 defenses already, and he has flirted with some QB1 performances, some back-end QB1 performances in those games. He's gotten there with his legs largely, and he's only thrown more than 1 passing touchdown in one of those games. That was the Seattle game. Devin Witherspoon also didn't play in that game. He had only 6 yards per pass attempt in that game as well. Chiefs game was the big spike week where he had the 26 fantasy points, but had 2 rushing touchdowns and 50 yards. Denver, going back to since they've had Vince Joseph, like they don't give up a lot of rushing yards to quarterbacks. Marcus Mariota, the past 2 years, has the most rushing yards against them, which is the 55. So it's a spot like if you were playing Lawrence, I don't necessarily think you have to stream for him, but I think the expectations were even if you hit, it's probably more in like that 17 to 19 point range, like a back end QB1. I don't think it's like a super spike week in terms of like crashing a ceiling or anything. Feel that way with like all of the pass catchers as well. Travis Etienne is a guy like you're probably like not benching because, you know, Bashal Tutin's out for the remainder of the year. Volume is in play. But I do have questions about him in this game. One is that they've been really bad running the football, and they were bad running the football against the Jets on Sunday. Only 2.7 yards per carry for him. He got there all through the air. Great game plan by Liam Cohen. Had the Jets linebackers in hell the entire game. The play design and the first Tutin touchdown was amazing. And then the wheel on Travis Etienne's first touchdown out was also awesome, but it was kind of one of those, you can't count on that kind of receiving performance to be static. He hadn't gone over 31 receiving yards in a game all year. Denver has been awesome against running backs in the passing game. They allow the lowest rate of completions to running backs this season. And like I said, over the past 3 weeks, Travis Etienne, 3 yards per carry, a 27% success rate. Like they're not going to line up and run the football in Denver as well. So if you're forced into just a pure drop back game against Denver, that could be a potential problem as well. The best pass rush in the NFL. So I have some kind of questions here. Obviously plenty of volatility on the other side as well, but Jaguars guys, I feel like they're more sits for me than starts, because I feel like even if you get like, if you play Jacoby Myers, you get a touchdown, I feel like it's just you got by. I don't think like anyone here is like giving you like a week winning performance in the fantasy playoffs.
Just as an aside, because I'm interested in kind of where you are on this, I'm in a semifinal where it's a 2 quarterback league. I have Jalen Hurts in one of the spots. He's not moving, obviously, this week.
Right.
But the other one is Trevor Lawrence or Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart going up against Minnesota. We've seen the issues they cause. Jackson Dart apparently leaves every game to get tested for a concussion. I'm really in, like, I've gone back and forth. I think I've changed that in that lineup 3 or 4 times this week. I think I'm going to go with Jackson Dart, because I just hope that we get there with our legs and it, everything kind of works out. But yeah, it's a really tough spot for both those guys. I wonder how did you have those guys ranked? Do you remember?
I have them right now. Dart 13, Lawrence 16. I will say this: if Jalen Hurts balls and gets you like 30, you just play Lawrence.
Yes, you avoid the zero. Avoid the zero. Yeah.
So, I mean, I would let that kind of dictate because I think Lawrence can still have an okay floor here. And like I said, he's had games against these top 10 defenses where he's been like the QB12. Like, I think that's where like you're hoping he delivers, right? Like if you're thinking like it's gonna be like a 25 plus fantasy point game for Lawrence, I think that's in the lower range of outcomes. But I still think he's going to be okay-ish here.
You talked about the Denver run defense. We have to talk about the other side of that and the Jacksonville run defense and what they have done to offenses. We saw, we had that odd thing with RJ Harvey's injury that we got absolutely no news about. He practiced, I believe, in full on Wednesday. So we're not worried about RJ Harvey moving forward like we were early in the week. But this is a pass funnel defense they're going up against. And the Jaguars, we've seen, last week we saw Bo Nix kind of get loose a little bit. It seems like they're going to get Pat Bryant back this week. We have that rotation of receivers behind Cortland Sutton. It's just a really interesting situation from a fantasy perspective, because I assume that Bo Nix is going to need to throw in this game just based on the defense that they're playing. We don't know who's going to play behind Cortland Sutton, at receiver. It's an interesting, again, like you said, a volatile fantasy situation here for the Broncos.
Yeah, and I wish we could trust Bo Nix, but I am more optimistic on Bo Nix. I think he's going to end up being in my DFS tournament pool too, because I think the upside is present for him. We talked about getting kind of a litmus test for the Jacksonville offense, where I'm very curious another litmus test for this defense to see where they're at, because they faced nothing but bad quarterbacks largely the past month. I mean, the last 3 quarterbacks they faced were Brady Cook, Riley Leonard, and Cam Ward. So this was a team we were picking on in the middle of the season. After like they allowed 27 points to Davis Mills, like Geno Smith had his best fantasy game against them this year. So I'm very curious to see where they are, especially because Denver, since the loss of J.K. Dobbins, has gone very pass heavy, and it's impacted Bo Nix. He's thrown for 295 or more yards in 3 of his past 4 games, and against good opponents too. Like they faced a lot of good opponents this past month. They've thrown the ball 8.6% over expectations their past 4 games since the loss of J.K. Dobbins. Only the Cardinals have a higher pass rate over expectations. They've also mixed in some no huddle too, which we like. And when you pair that with the Jaguars, who are the second largest pass fall in the NFL. Teams throw the ball 4.9% over expectations against them. That's the second highest rate in the league. Only the Titans have a higher rate. It's like it's set up. We're going to get a lot of Bo Nix dropbacks. So I think that there's some upside here for him too. Now, obviously, Bo Nix has left a lot of good matchups on the table, so we can't just be like, all right, smash Bo Nix in your lineups. But that's why I think he does have a larger path to like ceiling outcome though of the two quarterbacks in this game.
I guess you don't necessarily need to double stack Bo Nix, but it's not like he's producing a ton with his legs either this year. So if you were interested in double stacking him, obviously Sutton is like, it's not even a question. That's who we're going with. But Pat Bryant, like we said, if Pat Bryant's back, like where are we going? We saw Troy Franklin get more involved. We saw little Jordan Humphrey play more snaps still, though, run more routes, I believe.
You know who still didn't run a lot of routes?
Yeah,
Marvin Mims.
We, to be fair to us, we said, well, Sean Payton said this, but he says this every year about Marvin Mims. It never happened. So there you go. But is there a second guy that you would at least have reasonable amount of confidence in behind them? Pat Bryant coming back, that we're going to get him. Anybody else on that team that you would be confident stacking with Nix?
No, not really. To be honest, I think it would just be Courtland Sutton, and it's honestly good for Courtland Sutton that Pat Bryant's back because Pat Bryant has not earned any targets.
Yeah.
So like putting Pat Bryant on the field helps Courtland Sutton. Whereas when Troy Franklin plays, Troy Franklin earns targets. The second Troy Franklin got back on the field last week, he's out here getting targets. Should have had 2 touchdowns. He had one falsely rolled down by an official. He would have had 2 touchdowns. So if
he was so mad when he got up,
because he knew
he was right too. You watch the replay, he was 100% right. He never touched the ground.
Yeah. So I mean, it helps Courtland Sutton if they're willing to play Pat Bryant more snaps because Pat Bryant's are very much so. Or Franklin was like they were like basically we were questioning is like Courtland Sutton like the 1A 1B like at one point of the season. So it helps I think Courtland Sutton, but it's too tough to I think diagnose. I think you're largely in touchdown or bust territory with the other guys, including Evan Ingram who still doesn't play. And I know people want to do the revenge game narrative as always.
That's right. Let's take a walk down narrative street, baby. Let's do it. Yeah, but he's not playing enough. He just doesn't play. So like, what are you gonna do? Except that one game, that one beautiful game we got.
Well, you need Bobby Wagner on the field to make it happen.
One beautiful game. All right, one more game here I want to go through. Remember, every single game has been previewed, every single fantasy relevant player by Rich Hribar over at Sharp Football Analysis. We call them the worksheets. Previews every single game, every single week. We'll continue into the playoffs. So head over to Sharp Football Analysis and make sure you check that out. All right, we got Patriots at Ravens. Ravens minus 348.5 point total. We didn't get the fantasy game from him last week, but we've kind of been talking about this with Lamar Jackson for a couple weeks now, that he is looking healthier and playing better. They just didn't need to throw last week. I think you put in the worksheet, they attempted 3 passes in the second half. And so, it is what it is. But I think the underlying stuff we've been seeing from Lamar Jackson is very promising as we move here towards the end of the season.
Last 2 weeks, he's physically looked better. He's thrown the football better. Last week, we just didn't have the run out. We talked about it with Burrow at the open of the show. Like they had that 16-play drive, ended in a pick 6. So obviously the Bengals get the football right back, and they just ran out like the clock. They ran like an 11-play drive after that. So like the Ravens just didn't have the ball. They had the ball for the Bengals had it for 13 minutes of the fourth quarter last week. So we only got 40 offensive plays for the Ravens, but the underlying metrics were once again good for Lamar Jackson in terms of passing points. He actually should have had an extra touchdown too, but the fantasy god said, Zay Flowers, you already scored 1 touchdown. That's too many. Like we can't let you score another one, because he dropped a touchdown in the end zone as well. His interception also came out a drop from Zay Flowers. Only 2 incompletions were Zay Flowers drops on his targets, but it's looked promising here. I'm excited to see this game, a competitive game environment. I expect more dropbacks in this game. I would stick with him. We saw him have 20 points against the Steelers the week before, fantasy points that is. So he's good against man coverage. We know we're going to see a little sprinkling of man coverage from the Patriots. Teams are also incentivized to play man coverage against the Ravens because they only have 1 good receiver. So I would be willing to start Lamar Jackson. I know that you haven't had the fantasy run out, and probably a lot of teams that had Lamar Jackson aren't here at this point. But if you still do, I'm still I wouldn't say like overly bullish. I don't think he's like a smash, but I think he's a QB1 still this week.
The Ravens backfield split is interesting.
It is,
because we've been seeing, we've been betting actually Derrick Henry over carries, and it's been hitting consistently, except when they play the Bengals. Apparently the Bengals are the only team that it's never going to hit against. But if you dig deeper into it, when Keaton Mitchell is available and when he's healthy, the amount of touches that he's getting and how successful he's been on those touches is interesting if you're looking at Derrick Henry as a fantasy play.
Yeah, we started to see him chip away for good reason. I mean, Keith Mitchell's back to what we saw from like the small sample 2 years ago. Like this guy, when he's instant offense, when he's on the field, he's averaging 7.6 yards per touch. He's averaging 7.6 yards per run. Like, I would love to pull how many guys are averaging 7.6 yards per pass attempt right now in the NFL. So like you're getting passing volume production from a running back. That's how just electric this player is. And we've seen some wonky game script impacted Derrick Henry for only having 11 touches last week, but he also only had 52% of the backfield touches, his lowest rate of the season. 2 of his lowest rates this year for Derrick Henry have come in these 2 games that Keith Mitchell's been more involved. He left week 14 earlier. We probably would have seen him get more touches in that game as well. So it's something to just keep an eye on. It gives them a little bit of like the thunder and lightning throwback kind of analogy here. And it's usually like a receiving back that's in that role, but it's 2 running backs because Keith Mitchell doesn't play in the pass game at all, which is the other element. Rasheen Ali is just Justice Hill now.
Yep.
So it's not like when Derrick Henry is conceding touches, it's like the Justice Hill role. It's to another running back now. So that's why he's lost a little bit, but it does give the Ravens a run first offense in general. The ability to kind of like utilize another player that's effective in the run game.
Speaking of backfield splits, we obviously saw big plays from TreVeyon Henderson last week, to more 50-yard touchdown runs. It gives him, I think he wrote 4 now on the season.
Yeah,
so
4.
He's really doing what I guess when we saw that one kick return in the preseason, what we expected them to do, there it is. But we did see obviously still the split here with Ramondre Stevenson, which always raises questions. If we're not going to get those big plays out of him, then what ultimately do we end up with? And it makes Henderson really a boomer bust kind of fantasy play.
Yeah, he definitely still is boomer bust. We saw Ramondre still play a significant amount of snaps to where it still just wasn't Henderson's backfield. We saw Stevenson that is still play pass protection. They just trust him a lot more in pass protection for good reason at this point too. So that's why we saw, him be kind of like a 65% touch guy. And I think it's also going to depend on like how hot he's running. Like if Henderson is getting a lot of strikeouts, I think early in the game, so to speak, I know you love when we cross reference sports analogies, then you don't see him. But the fact that he popped one early, I think gave them confidence to like incorporate him more into the offense. So it's going to be just volatile. I still think he's a guy you play because the per touch upside is so good, right? Yeah. And we've seen it. And the Ravens they'll give up big runs. They're good against the run in general, but they will give up splash play runs. They're 24th in the league in rate of runs allowed for 10 or more yards over their past 9 games. That's kind of like the barrier people have used for them. I give them an extra game. People always use the bye, but they got guys back against that Rams game. People think it's convenient to leave that out in the split as well. But yeah, Stevenson's like still just touchdown or bust, but Henderson, we've seen it like it's the last time a player had 2 games where they had 2 50-yard touchdowns was Chris Johnson in 2009, like that magical Chris Johnson season. So like that's still the per touch upside we have with TreVeyon Henderson. So very, very exciting player per touch.
Can I go back to strikeouts for just a moment?
Go.
I'm mostly okay with strikeouts. I'll
okay.
Say. It's fine. Like you could use stuffs, but like it's fine. It's not as common as strikeouts. The thing that really bothers me is when an NFL player is on a quote pitch count. NFL reporters, we have a term that is widely used that you could use instead of pitch count called snap count. He's on a snap count. We don't need to say pitch count. Pitch count is not something that we have to do. Like that's not a thing we need. Anyway, there you go. There's my pitch count rant. I will never not be annoyed by it. Although I believe I am probably the only one. And you know what? Maybe I just need a cup of coffee and we'll move on with our lives. Somebody that might need a cup of coffee to, play more snaps is Stephon Diggs. We're not getting enough run from him. And then the rest of the wide receivers are, we see Kayshon Boutte run a lot of routes, but we haven't seen him get a ton of targets. He's basically touchdown or bust. We haven't seen Hunter Henry get a lot of targets. Just a really muddled situation that would be a lot better if Stephon Diggs was running 80% of the routes, but we're just not getting that from him recently.
No, and he has like 2 games that are just kind of outliers, and I would love to know the reason why he ran so many routes in those games. There's like no real signal. I thought last week, and I was like, all right, they're coming out of the bye. It's obviously like the first big game, like the Vrabel era. Like, I was like, they're going to have to play Stephon Diggs, right? Like they're going to actually like play him. Like this is a spot where you like give him extended run. And he was still only on the field for, 54% of the dropbacks. And a lot of this, I think, has hurt Drake May from a fantasy stance too, because they're playing bad players over Stephon Diggs. Like, or just like these guys aren't as productive as Stephon Diggs. And we've seen Drake May, he's still been really good. He's been really solid, but we see him kind of peter out as like a back end QB1, whereas like we just haven't been getting those spike weeks from him. And I think it's because he's throwing to bad players. Like I honestly do. I think he's like they're just not like incorporating their best players in the offense. And I get it. They've got a good record. They're cruising the playoffs. You want to manage Stephon Diggs snaps. I understand all that. But we've seen basically May settle in as like a high floor QB1 instead of like this spike week guy we were getting early in the season, because they're rotating in Mac Hollins and Kyle Williams and like, dude, just play Stephon Diggs. We want him to play.
Mac Hollins, though, I mean, shirtless and shoeless, it's tough. You just got to play that toughness. That's it for us. If you want to read more of the game previews, like I said, every single game, all the fantasy relevant players over at Sharp Football Analysis in Rich's worksheets. So make sure you go and check that out. We're going to move on to the last segment here. Uncut Gems. This is where we try to identify a player who is either on the waiver wire or on a lot of benches and deep leagues that we think can outpace expectations this week and put up a starting level score. Obviously, that's harder to do as we get deeper here into the season. The teams are better, but we're going to try to find some people here who are at least interesting. Who do you got as your uncut gem this week?
Yeah, get your credit cards out. I'm going to Jalen Coker.
Jalen
this
Coker.
week.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and it's for a couple of reasons. I mean, one, obviously, I actually think I would downgrade him a little bit if Ted McMillan ends up not playing. He did not practice on Wednesday, but he's done this a couple times too in recent weeks too, so if he's back, because we want Ted McMillan to soak up Jameel Dean, who's been awesome this year. Although he should have given up his first touchdown on Thursday night, but David Sills was so open that he thought about catching the football, and you could see him like work through the motion and just like put his hands in the wrong spot. That happens sometimes. I've been there, Mr. Sills, I understand, but the Buccaneers with Jameel Dean have been really good to opposing wide receiver ones, but they lost Zion McCollum in that game, and the depth here at cornerback is really stretched thin. I mean, they're probably going to elevate Benjamin Morrison, lean on maybe a guy like Jacoby Parrish or Kendall Vildor, but Benjamin Morrison seems like he's going to be the next guy up and be starting in this game. And he's allowed 125 rating when targeted this season. That's the small sample we've got him. Coker has hit at least 52 yards in 3 of his past 4 games. We wish that they would lean on the pass here. They should be coaxed to pass more. Shout out to, Josh Shepardson, who works with us, like said, hey, well, last year Dave Canales did pass over expectation at a high rate against the Bucs in 2 games too. So maybe we'll get it here. They definitely should throw the ball more here in this game. So I think Coker slides into like that wide receiver 4 flexious type range if you need a body this week.
I don't know much about Jalen Coker, but I'll promise you he'll get you 4 targets, because he gets 4 targets every single game. So he's going to get you 4 targets at least. But like you said, I do wonder if they lean more into the pass. They haven't been able to run the ball at all. The Bucs are not a like elite run defense by any stretch of the imagination, but the only time they've been able to run recently has been against the 49ers, who are, as we've previously talked about, just really bad against the run. So yeah, we'll see kind of what happens there. I'm going to go a little bit, I think, even further down the sheet, and I'm going to say that this is an absolute, I'm not going to call it a shot in the dark, but I'm going to tell you that this is pure projection, and that my uncut gem is Tyler Allgeier. And the reason is because this backfield has been tilted very heavily towards Bijan Robinson in recent weeks, like 75-25%. We haven't seen Allgeier get a ton of work, but those games that we've had over the last 3 weeks have, when you look at them in the script and how they played out, they look like Bijan Robinson games. The last time that we had a game that was more even against the Saints, we saw Tyler Allgeier have 12 carries in that game. And that game, I think, is going to look a lot more like this one with them going up against the Cardinals. The Cardinals just allowed the Jawar Jordan to get 100 yards and a touchdown. The week before that, they allowed Blake Corum to get 128 yards, 84 yards to Kyron Williams, 3 combined touchdowns to both of them. The Falcons, when they're able to do what they want to do, I think they want to run the football. I think they're going to have a lot of success running the football because of just where the Cardinals defense is right now and the Cardinals are as a team. I think the Falcons are going to run down their throats. And if that happens, then we're going to get 10 to 14 carries out of Tyler Allgeier in this matchup. And I think that that's probably going to be enough for him to have a pretty decent game. So that's my Tyler Allgeier argument. Do I feel great about it? Not necessarily, but if you're digging deep at running back, I wanted to throw somebody out there that might not really be on the radar. And I think that even though the usage hasn't been great recently, this game sets up a lot better for Allgeier to get some carries. So there we are. I can't wait for him to get 2 carries for 7 yards and that be it. But that's it. We're done. We're not going to be back, as I mentioned. We're not going to be back next week because of Christmas. We'll be back the week after that, talk about week 18. We really do appreciate y'all listening to this point. If you have, make sure you subscribe wherever you find us. Make sure you head over to sharpfoot.football. Take advantage of those deals that we have there. Go to the website. Check out Rich's worksheet previews of every single game. And we'll be back to talk with you in 2 weeks.